Now we're going to start with the peace session, building a forward-looking, secure and democratic emerging Europe. And I am honored to discuss the topic with a guest who, for the last year and a half, has been particularly determined to fight for democracy, Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, the leader of democratic Belarus and the recipient of Emerging Europe's Public Figure Award of 2021.
Thank you for the invitation. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure for me to be here, and thank you for designating me as Emerging Europe's Public Figure of the Year. It's an honor.
Well, the award is very well deserved. Last year, I have to say, I had a call with Valery Tsepkalo, who I first met 6 or 7 years ago when he managed the high-tech park in Minsk. He told me about his struggle to run for office last year, as he and some other candidates were deemed invalid by the regime. We can say that Lukashenko sort of allowed you to run. Do you think he underestimated you?
I was allowed to run just to make fun of me. And they thought I was a joke, and no one person in Belarus would vote for housewife. Nobody took me seriously. But I think that regime underestimated me, and regime underestimated their, unquenchable desire of Belarusian people for changes. And it was unthinkable for them that hundreds of thousands of people would take the streets and protest in myriads of other peaceful protests in other peaceful forms. And but this happens when government disregard people whom you are supposed to take care for more than 20 years. And, for sure, they thought that, housewife would never, could never, unite people.
It's been over a year since the election, and Lukashenko is still in power. How have Belarusians and Belarus changed over the last 13 months?
Maybe the first time in our independent history, we realized how many of us, of those who want changes, we could look into one year's eyes and to see the same desire for changes in our country. And we also, Belarusians, realized what responsibility means. That when you take care not only about yourself or your family, you have to make decisions that can influence the whole country. And, at the beginning of last year, we were volunteering to help our doctors in COVID. In the summer of 2020, we collected signatures. We joined the rallies and voted for changes. And since then, we have been defending our choice against merciless repressions. So Belarusians understood that we are really strength only when we are united, when we are together. And, this point of non-return has already passed, and people in Belarus will not be able to return to that state of slavery we lived for many, many years.
Over the last year, we have seen a lot of young people and women being very active at rallies. That's the future, isn't it?
Of course, new generation, young people are extremely important for the future of Belarus. But if we are talking about our revolution or changes in our society, women played huge roles, but men as well. And maybe the first time our women showed that we can defend our men. When our men were jailed and tortured behind the bars, these were women who went to the front line of the struggle. And so I'm sure that in future Belarus there will be no division between women and men. Nobody will say that our women don't deserve to be politicians, to be high on a high position. So we proved that we are on the same position as our men. And of course, new generation with their brains, with their minds, participated a lot in rallies, and they continue to fight for our future because their future are at stake. And maybe women participating so much because the future of their children are at stake.
We cannot, of course, ignore all human rights violations, thousands of people being in jail, and including of your husband, of course, and also about journalists. One of them, a friend of mine, Yulia Slutskaya, was recently released from prison after spending several years there, several months there. Their voices are not always heard on the international arena. What should we say on their behalf?
Their voices are not always heard. So then it's up to us to make sure that they are. And the most important thing to innocent people behind the bars in Belarus is to know that they are not forgotten, they are not abandoned, and that there are other Belarusians and world that cares. And as always, I say during my visits and my meetings with the leaders of different countries, I say that we should keep the focus. We should keep Belarus highly on agenda. So the voices of journalists, volunteers, medics and sportsmen, mothers, wives who are in jails now should be heard everywhere in parliaments, in European Union, in international organizations, and in different NGOs. Only in this way, uh, the voices will not be silenced by this regime.
So you've mentioned the international community. What should the international community actually do? The measures taken so far don't seem to be working. How would you feel about supporting sporting sanctions, banning Belarus teams and athletes from international competitions? We have seen that with South Africa in the 70s.
International community should pay more attention to Belarus, should keep Belarus on agenda, and don't invite representatives of the regime on any event, not to legitimate them. And sanctions work. Maybe it's the most important leverage European Union and the USA have to create multiple points of pressure on the regime. On the one hand, we should isolate regime economically, financially, politically, diplomatically. But on the other hand, European community should understand um, to support, it's important to support civil society. It's a very difficult moment for people. People are scared. People have to flee the country because of the repressions. And it's high time to show your solidarity and to assist those who are in the fight for democratic changes. So pressure on the one hand, on the other hand, assist to civil society. On this combination will work and stop repressions in our country, will help to release political prisoners, and will bring Belarus to changes through new free and fair elections.
We mentioned rallies. When you looked at the streets, you could clearly see the public support you have. I also saw you at the Economic Forum in Poland last week, together with some other prominent opposition leaders. It's great to see that you speak with one voice. At the same time, there are so many well-educated and experienced people who, when I met them several years ago, were quite vocal about supporting reforms, but now they seem to still be working with the regime. How would you explain that?
Main explanation here is fear. Belarusian regime is a structure that is built on fear. And if the majority of people who are still in the regime, they also want changes. They also want reform. They understand that we need better management of our country. But they are so scared about their families, about their lives, about their salaries, and it's very difficult to overstep this fear. And this is what happened with officials and Slovakia that quit the system. So, regime show what will happen to you if you quit openly, and people are scared. So I swear to God that the majority of them want changes. It's impossible to live with this regime anymore. But fear, it's our feeling that you can't overstep usually.
Would you have done something differently if you were to start all over again?
There are no what ifs in the history, and you don't have to waste your time thinking what could I do differently, where we have made mistakes, or what were our right steps. We are in the situation where we are now, and we have to deal with this. Maybe I could do something differently, but it would bring us to different situation. So what is done is done. So let's work in the condition we are at the moment.
So let me finish with a big question. If it is clear that Lukashenko's days as Belarusian president are numbered, what will a free and democratic Belarus look like?
I see my country going through all these difficulties with many victims, with a lot of sufferings. I see new Belarus mainly as safe and secure, where people are respected, where you're sure that you are not agree with some decisions of government, you will not be jailed. Your family will not be persecuted. I see my country where people can be educated on a high level, where you have access to modern medicine equipment, where you feel happy, because I doubt that people in Belarus, in the common, felt very happy in the country. It's impossible when you live under a regime. But people need to grow this feeling of happiness and safeness inside of them. Now it's impossible, but after changes, I'm sure that our Belarusians will, first of all, feel their responsibility for their country and feel that they are important for their country, and they will make them happy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, the leader of Democratic Belarus and the recipient of the Emerging Europe Public Figure Award of 2021. Thank you for joining us today, and I know you celebrated your birthday a few days ago, so all the very best for you and your country. Thank you.